Welcome learners to today's lesson about integers, and today we are going to be focusing on the practice and application questions. So let's look at a few questions about multiplication and division. I have there number 1, a positive 3 multiplied by a negative 7. Remember, we are multiplying a positive number with a negative number. So we know that our answer is going to be a negative answer. Then we are going to say 3 multiplied by 7, which is 21. So our answer for a positive 3 multiplied by negative 7 is negative 21. Let's go to the next one. I have negative 4 divided by a positive 1. I am dividing a negative number with a positive number. Do you remember what the answer will be? Yes, it is going to be a negative answer. Then we say 4 divided by 1. This goes on to the properties of 1. Do you remember? If I am dividing a number by 1, that number will be itself. So negative 4 divided by a positive 1, we know the answer is going to be negative, and 4 divided by 1 is 4. So my answer there is a negative 4. Then now we have 8 squared divided by a negative 2. You do remember that when we are working with integers, we just need to place them in brackets so that we do not get confused. So I have 8 squared divided by a negative 2. We are first going to work with the 8 squared. We know that 8 squared is 8 times 8. What is 8 times 8? The answer there is 64, and we are dividing the 64 by a negative 2. The 64 is a positive number and the 2 is a negative. So a positive divided by a negative will give us an answer that is, yes, you are correct, that is negative. And then 64 divided by 2 will give us 32. Okay. Let's look at more questions. Now we have a negative 8 squared divided by a negative 2. Before we can continue, we need to look at that negative 8. Now that negative is not in the brackets. This means that the only number being squared there is the 8 and not the negative 8. So if I wanted to say negative 8 squared, I would have placed it in brackets. But because there are no brackets, this means that the only number being squared is the 8. So what does this become? The negative stays where it is, and we say 8 multiplied by 8. And our answer there is going to be a negative 64. So we are going to take it back to our sum, and this is going to be a negative 64 divided by a negative 2. So remember, we are going to place our brackets to avoid confusion. So I am dividing a negative number with a negative number. And if I am dividing two numbers that are negative, then my answer is going to be positive. So what is 64 divided by 2? That is 32. And my 32 is going to be positive because I am dividing two negative numbers. Let's look at the next one. That is a positive 3 multiplied by a positive 4 squared. Again, we are going to start with that power. So we are going to say 3 multiplied by, we know that 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. Now, what is 3 multiplied by 16? We are multiplying a positive number with a positive number. So that means that our answer is going to be positive. So what is 3 multiplied by 16? Yes, you are correct. Our answer is going to be a positive 48. Did you get that correct? I really hope that you did. Let's move on to the next one. Now I have a square root 81. So the square root of 81 divided by negative 9. Do take note that that square root is positive. So this means that the answer to that square root is also going to be positive. So we have the square root of 81 divided by a negative 9. We are going to start with the square root of 81. The square root of 81 is 9. We are going to divide that by negative 9. I am dividing a positive number with a negative number. My answer is going to be negative. And what is 9 divided by 9? Again, the properties of 1. Any number divided by itself is going to be 1. Except for 0, of course. So our answer is a negative 1. And then looking at this one, again, do take note. We are looking at a negative square root of 36. So because we are working with a negative square root, this means that our answer is also going to be negative. So a negative square root of 36 is a negative 6. We are going to divide this by, again, the negative 1 is in brackets and the whole negative 1 is being cubed. Do you remember what cubed means? It means that we are going to multiply negative 1 by itself twice. This is negative 1 multiplied by negative 1 multiplied by negative 1. So negative 1 multiplied by negative 1 multiplied by negative 1. Remember, we are going to start with the first two, which is a negative and a negative, giving us a positive 1. And when we multiply with that negative 1, that is going to give us an answer of a negative 1. So here we are dividing with a negative 1. And then because I am dividing two negative numbers, I am going to say a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive, and then 6 divided by 1 is going to give us an answer of 6. So negative 6 divided by a negative 1 will give us a positive 6. Let's quickly go to an ad break and then we'll see you just now.